Hello, students. In this lesson, you're going to learn about the language of charts and graphs. We have some different kinds of graphs here. This one here that's round, you can see that it has these triangular pieces inside, and we call a graph like this a pie graph or a pie chart. And so on the side of it, it will usually have a key so that you can tell what the different pieces represent. So here you can see that product 1 is the orange, product 2 is the beige, and product 3 is the green. So you can usually recognize pie charts because I think it's a similar word in other languages also use the same word for this type of chart. Over here we have a chart that has a line that goes up and down, and we call this a line graph because it's using a line to represent the different values. And down here we have two different kinds of bar graphs. These shapes right here are called bars, and if they go up and down, then this is a vertical bar graph because the bars are going vertically. And if the bars go this way, we call this a horizontal bar graph because lines that move in this direction are horizontal. Now here we have a bar graph that's vertical, but because the bars themselves represent different proportions, we would call this a proportional vertical bar graph. And here we have a proportional horizontal bar graph. Here's some language that we can use when we're describing what we see in a graph, whether it be a bar graph or a line graph or whatever kind of graph. When we see trends, that means there might be movement within the graph. If we see a line going up or down, we would consider that a trend because it's a movement within the graph. So if we see the line going up, it means that something is increasing. And we can use different language for that. We could say that the trend was rising, or the amount was rising, it was growing, surging, it's increasing, or if it went really fast upward, we could say it jumped, it climbed, or we're just talking in general, it went up, or it soared. Or we can use it in a noun form. There was a rise, there was some growth, or there was an upsurge, an increase, an upward trend, an upward tendency, or an ascending trend. These are just different words we use for things going up. If it was trends or a trend that was going down, we could use this kind of language: to decrease, to fall, to decline, to reduce, to drop, to plunge. If it's very sudden, it would be like a plunge or a plummet. These two would be very sudden drop, where the line on the line graph went down very quickly. Or you could just say that the trend has a tendency to go down. And then here, once again, these are noun words that we could use for the same thing. Now, if the line was going across the graph pretty steadily, like not really changing, not really going up and down very much, we would be talking about its stability. We could say that it was unchanged, that it leveled out. That means it was level, it was kind of horizontal. Or a plateau is the same thing, it's horizontal, or it remains constant, it remains steady, remains the same. We want to refer to it with nouns. We could say it has a plateau, or there was a plateau. or there was constancy in the levels, or steadiness, or stability. And then if we just need words for movement itself, like maybe going up and down quickly, we could say that it fluctuates. That means it's going up and down quickly. And then these are just other words, like to peak is to go way up high, and then the very top is the peak, and then to dip would be go down low, and the very bottom would be the dip. So those are just some different words we use when we're describing graphs. Here are some examples. The overall sales of the company have increased 20% by the end of the year. So that means that the sales went up. That could be represented on a line graph, or it could be represented on a bar graph if it was like a bar graph representing, let's say, sales by week or by month. Here's another one. The profits rose by almost 25%. Same thing, depending on how you want to represent it. You could describe it as the profit rose. Okay, then there was a 15% drop. Okay, that would be where the trend would be going downward on the graph. Or the population of the country remained almost the same as it was 2 years ago. Then you would be seeing on your graph that things have leveled out. Once again, here are some different words we can use when we want to talk about things going upward over time. Then we can use words like rise, jump, grow, climb, go up, increase, and soar. And then the faster it goes up, if we want to describe it going up, we could say like it rose sharply, rapidly, quickly, steeply. And then if it's not going up quite so fast, maybe considerably, significantly, substantially. Maybe if it's kind of going slowly upwards, steadily, gradually, moderately. And if it's only going upward a little bit, we might say that it's going up slightly or slowly. And then here are words we could use for going down: fall, drop, decline, decrease, go down, plunge, plummet. And if things stay the same, we have remain or stay. You could say stay constant, remain steady, and so forth. Here are some examples of how we could say this in a sentence. You could say sales fell slightly. So we have our verb here, we have our adjective here. Or prices dropped sharply. Or production rose steadily. Or the percentage of something decreased significantly. Or the number of something increased dramatically. We usually use past tense, but it just kind of depends on which graph you're describing. And then you could also talk about it in a little bit different way by using adjectives and nouns instead of verbs and adverbs. You could say there is a slight rise in sales, or if it was past tense, there was. Or there was a gradual fall in the price of something. Or there has been a dramatic drop in the rate of something. Or there will be a steady decline in the number of something. So these are just different ways we can talk about a graph. Usually the first sentence of a graph, we're going to introduce the graph. So we could say that the data gives, let's say, the rate of. We're talking about the graph. Or the given chart illustrates the amount of, and then we say what it is. Or the following illustration portrays the comparison of blah, blah, blah. So these are just different ways that we introduce the graph. We start talking about the graph. Probably the most common way that we do it is we say the graph or the following graph or the given graph or flow chart shows. We usually say shows, and then we say what it shows, like the number of days that, and then we say what it is. So the following graph or the given graph shows information about, let's say, immigration to the United States in 1940, something like that. So that's how we would start talking about the graph. Another way that we can describe the trends in the graph is by using prepositions. So prepositions are words like from or by or in. Okay, so here we're looking at a graph. If we're talking about a part of the graph where it starts, and then we want to talk about where it goes to, from 2002 to 2006. It decreased from 10 to 4, or there was a drop of 6 units, or it dropped by 6 units, or there was a decrease in the number of. So between 2004 and 2008, there was a decrease in the number of blah, blah, blah. Okay, so these are just different examples of how we use prepositions to describe a graph. Here's some examples of the very, very first sentence. So the provided diagram shows data on employment categories in energy producing sectors in Europe starting from 1925 to 1985. Or the given pie chart represents the proportion of male and female employees in 6 broad categories divided into manual and non-manual occupations. Or the chart gives information on expenditures of 4 European countries on 6 consumer products, namely Germany, Italy, Britain, and France. So the first sentence usually tells us everything we need to know to understand what this chart is about. Okay, let's look at this example and then we're done with the lesson. Push pause on the video and read the sentences below. Sometimes there's more than one word because more than one word could be used in the same way. You wouldn't have to use all of the options, but it's just showing different types of words you could use in place of, let's say, a verb or a noun. So read through this and see this example, and this will help you with the tasks that you need to do for this lesson.